Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, rhythm is power. Think about this for a second. Someone like Brook, via his music, can actually influence the actions of other people. Where someone like Brook can play a cool tune, and then people, they start jamming. They start twerking up, having a good time. And we even saw during Fishman Island, could even give people hallucinations while he was playing his music. We know that rhythm can influence people in various ways. But the sun god Nika and the drums of liberation seem to be a bit more special than even Brook's ability to manipulate people or things with music. Because this Iron Giant robot in the Fabrio Stratum was supposed to be decommissioned after a period of time from, let's say, the Void Century to 600 years after that, 200 years ago, where it tried to attack the Holy Land and then stopped. And the assumption was that it ran out of power. And this power source that they have to power the ancient robot is an even better power source than the Mother Flame. The same thing that they used to power the object, supposedly ancient weapon Uranus that destroyed the Lulusia kingdom. Not confirmed, we'll find out real soon if it is actually Uranus. That being said though, the most important thing here is that this robot was supposed to be done. No power. The power source of the ancients was tapped. Until the drums of liberation, Gear 5, Monkey D. Luffy, started just stunning, started feeling real good, started jamming out, and all of a sudden the robot, Joy Boy. Wait, hold on, what? How? How is that possible? One of the undisputable facts that we as readers have to contend with when it comes to Gear 5 is the reality that Luffy is the sun god. The sun god Nika, which we do not really know what it means to be a sun god. We have a general gist of what the sun god of One Piece is based on chapter 1044. But also remember that Luffy as a character and his mindset, those also influence what you can and cannot do with your abilities. Keep that in mind. If someone like, let's say, Law had Luffy's power, it would operate in many ways kind of differently because he would perceive his powers in a whole new way. If someone like Kid had Luffy's powers, he would perceive the abilities differently and they would be used in a somewhat different way. The foundations are the same for sure, but the creativity and utilization of said ability would be different. And one of the things that's very important when it comes to Luffy as a character is what? Freedom. For him, what does it mean to be Pirate King? Being Pirate King is being the freest man on the ocean. That's what it means to be Pirate King. It is the thing that he learned from Shanks ultimately, and what Shanks kind of got from Roger ultimately. And now we found out as of late that Joy Boy himself was the first pirate. So remember the first opening of the One Piece post time skip where you have Roger, when he's a kid or he's younger, having the hat on him, then it cuts over to Shanks, then Shanks puts the hat on Luffy, a younger Luffy, and then he goes into kid Luffy, then pre-taps to the post-time skip. So I think that Joy Boy is very similar too, where Joy Boy is, at that point in time, he is the first pirate, which probably is synonymous with the idea of being the freest person on the ocean. Because in a general sense, the way Oda writes a story, in the world of One Piece, Roger's way, Shanks' way, and Luffy's way of being a pirate is the correct way of being a pirate. Someone like Kid ultimately failed. And part of the reason why is because Kid is the incorrect way, the incorrect version of being a pirate. The correct version is what we see kind of passed down through Roger and Shanks and Luffy. And I believe that Joy Boy is very similar. The same Joy Boy who is also themed off a Caribbean god, Baron Samedi, who is the spirit of the drums. Once again, I think it's almost clear that the drums liberation, this rhythm, has an innate energy. Has an energy to it. And we know that someone like Brook can apply a sort of energy, a sort of influence via his music. We can apply that same logic to the drums of liberation. Now, this may or may not necessarily be a very, 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 very subtle thing, where we know that when Luffy got knocked off the island by Kaido in Onigashima, Luffy was able to telepathically communicate to Momonosuke, and other people in the area, Lost Crew, they could hear Luffy speak. It seemed like Luffy was tapping into like a deeper sort of recess of his abilities. Telepathy, the voice of all things, and the drums of liberation could be hand in hand with that. Zunisha, pretty similar, where Zunisha could perceive the drums of liberation probably via the voice of all things. So it's very, very possible here that in a way with One Piece, you can actually project, in some sense, mental energy through the very air and water itself to reach other people and other things. Keep in mind, it's still not explained yet how Luffy could telepathically talk to Momonosuke and other people, Lost Crew, could hear what he was saying. And keep in mind, this is after he awakens Conqueror's Haki Infusion, but before he achieves awakening. Throughout the entirety of Wano Country, maybe the entire post-time skip, there has been a progression, arguably, towards Luffy getting better and better and better when it comes to his powers, and then ultimately achieving the pinnacle of that, where his body and his mind catch up to his abilities and he awakens his powers. Luffy's drums liberation, which may or may not have a direct tie to the Eternal Flame, which was the power source of the ancient kingdom a long time ago, I think that somehow, some way, it actually revitalizes the Eternal Flame. The actual drums of liberation themselves, they have energy. Is it possible that you can actually influence people and kind of give them free will? The prisoners that Who's Who talked about during the Jinbei fight, they prayed to the sun god Nika, and they wanted to be free from their current enslavement. Enslavement imposed by who? The elders and Emu. Look at the polar opposite side for a second here. We saw somehow, some way, Jay Garcia Saturn just paralyze Frankie, Sanji, Bonnie, Atlas, and Vegapunk, and they couldn't move. They were completely restricted in some way that we are not aware of at this point in time. Now, this might relate to the Gyuki ability that he has, but symbolically, it is probably the representation of suppressing or stifling, removing one's free will. Therefore, you are unable to act out on the world. In fact, if he is a demon of some kind, maybe he could remove free will. The same way Zoro couldn't move when he was in the quote-unquote netherworld and he was face-to-face with death, Grin from Billy and Mandy. Guess what? It can be applied here too if this is something that things of the netherworld, the underworld, can do. They can remove, suppress, stifle in some way someone's free will. If we go back to, let's say, Film Red. In Film Red, Tom Musica, that demon from another plane of existence, right? That demon is synonymous to power, the Sing Sing ability, where your soul cannot escape from another plane of existence. Stifling, freedom, boxed in, can't do, hello? Yeah. So if one side of the aisle, the demons, the devils, death, that kind of stuff, people that use those abilities that are akin to demonic sources of some kind. Even let's say Brook, in some sense, you can argue, because Brook's abilities are to freeze, suppress one's mobility, right? So in some roundabout ways, just so you could argue that one side of the aisle is about suppressing and removing freedom, the ability to act on your own free will, Luffy could, let's say, be the opposite side, where he's able to infuse, literally, unironically infuse free will into objects, other people, via the energy, potentially the eternal energy that ties the eternal flame, maybe of the drums of liberation. Yes. And it's at a level that only really things, people, entities that have the voice of all things. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if this Iron Giant actually has the voice of all things. This would not shock me in the slightest to actually hear it kind of like Zunisha. So if that's the case, then it would be at that sort of fundamental level that we're talking about here when it comes to the influence of a god, a deity, or a deity ability user per se, on those that believe in it, or folks in general, folks that truly espouse, truly try to be the freest they can be. He is the polar opposite to what the demons and the devils and the Grim Reaper, what they do. Rhythm is power. We'll see soon enough. But you may say that's kind of weird. He's a sun god. He has the power of the sun god. What can Anika do? Anika can do whatever Oda really wants him to do. The body, we know, yeah, it's rubbery and it's way tougher now. But beyond the body, what else can Anika do? And we have plenty of time to find out in this final saga. Via Eternal Flame, via inserting freedom itself into other beings and things. Rhythm itself can be power. But let me know what you think on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoy boys content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you guys on the flip side.
See you. Bye bye.